What's going on, Team Trek family? Welcome back with another episode. In the studio tonight, I got one of my best friends, Master Sergeant retired Christopher Meyers. Chris, thanks for coming tonight.
What's going on, brother? How you doing?
I'm great. It is so good to see you again. Now, Chris, for our viewers at home, they need to understand you did 23 years, retired as a team sergeant, Green Beret and 10th Special Forces Group. I just want people to understand who's sitting here.
That's right.
You got some time behind a lot of the conflicts. You've had the opportunity to deploy to a lot of different countries, and you had one of the best upbringings I've ever heard of. Um, Basically, got to travel the world as a child and really see all these different cultures. So, do me a huge favor, do us a favor. Talk to us about what you've been doing, where you've been in the last 6 months. Just give us that real quick.
Last 6 months, I'm kind of running a program right now for the government out of Romania. So I get to travel all over Eastern Europe, Latvia, um, Lithuania, mainly Romania though, and so it's been pretty fun. I am gone from home a lot, but I'm still kind of in the fight right now with all the stuff going on over in that part of the world. But yeah, it keeps me engaged with what's going on with what the fellas what the fellas could be doing soon. So
No, that's right. You retired 5 years ago, right?
no, I actually retired in 2015, and so it's been a little bit longer. It's been about 8 years now, and I've got to do a lot of traveling. I've been working with the same company since 2015. Started off working back in Central Africa, everywhere from Central African Republic to Mongolia to Lithuania to Okinawa. So I've been keeping busy.
Do you have a favorite?
Do I have a favorite? Um, right now, my job that I have right now is pretty interesting, but I'll always have a soft spot for Africa, especially Central Africa. That was my last kind of deployment with the military, and then I got lucky after retiring. I I got picked up for this job where I was able to kind of continue that mission on a different level on the civilian side, and I got to see kind of how we started it and how it ended, and so for me, Central Africa and matter of fact, all of the Central African region, but Central African Republic and Uganda are probably my favorite places to that I've been to so far.
Now, when you say favorite places, are you talking deployment wise, or would you go there on holiday?
Uganda, I would go on holiday. I mean, it's a great place. The people are vibrant. It's pretty easy to get around there. Driving in Kampala is a little bit dangerous, but and the people there are wonderful. I still have close friends that I talk to this day. Matter of fact, my old driver Henry, we communicate constantly, and I'm kind of I kind of help him with his children's school fees. So I'm kind of investing. I call it an investment in Uganda. His son's actually trying to become an engineer, and he's got to be 18, 19 now. He's got two daughters that are coming their way through school, and so yeah, Uganda's got always it's kind of like my I'm not gonna say my second home, but probably it's pretty close. So
Okay. Well, speaking of homes, where were you born?
I was born in Landstuhl, Germany. My dad was in the military. My mom's German, and we got to travel around my whole life because I lived in Iran when I was a kid. Before all this turmoil there.
How old were you when you were in?
2 till about 4.5. I don't remember a lot of it. My mom loved it there. My dad was working with out of the embassy out there, um, so I don't recall a lot of it. Just living there. Not a lot of Americans can say they spent some time there, especially nowadays. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
So, born in Germany,
yeah.
went to Iran was the second place you were at.
Born in Germany. No, my dad got stationed in Oklahoma for a little bit, And then we actually went to Germany. Germany, my dad drove to Iran. And then from Iran, we went back to Germany. Germany to Florida. Florida back to Germany. Germany to England. Graduated high school in England. And then from there, went to California. Attempted to go to college for about 2 years. Wasn't quite for me at the time. Got put on academic probation at a junior college. Mom and dad probably proud about that, but whatever. So, and then after that, in graduated high school in '91, stayed out in California for about 2 years, and then I joined the Army from there.
Well, let's not forget one very important part, right? You had a sidekick with you the entire time.
Yeah, I got a twin brother. We've done almost everything step by step together. We even joined the Army together. Basic training, AIT, airborne school, first duty assignment together, and then we kind of split a little bit. He went off to Germany. I went off to Hawaii, and then he called me up one day and said, "Hey, let's go to a Special Forces selection," and this was in '99. Well, my son was just born, and I told him I can't go right at the moment. And so he went to selection. I think he finished selection in 2001, and I went to selection in 2003. And then we were both stationed together in Germany in 2005, and then back in Carson together, Fort Carson in 2000. I went to Fort Carson 2008. He actually went to SWIC to become an instructor. He actually took my spot. He helped me dodge a bullet there, so he got to go be an instructor for a while. I went out to Fort Carson. He came about 3 years later, and then we were together in the 4th Battalion together. And then from there, I went on to. Then I took my turn at SWIC. He stayed at Fort Carson. I retired. He went on to become a sergeant major, and then he just retired a couple years ago, and now he lives in Okinawa with his wife, who's stationed out at First Group. So we've done a lot. We've been together a lot of times. We did a lot of things together. 7 minutes older than I am. You might as well thought he was 7 years older than me my whole life growing up, especially when we would go do combat deployments together in Afghanistan. I couldn't walk out of the team room without him double checking my weapons, double checking my magazines. I'm like, I've done this before, right? I
couldn't help it.
Right. So, but I mean, we had a close bond growing up. We had a pretty tight family group growing up together, even though my dad was in the Army and he did his TDYs and his deployments and stuff, but our family was pretty tight. So that kind of helped our bond closer in the military, especially once we started doing, special forces stuff. We always took care of each other. So, it's pretty important to have that bond with people. And, we grew up in a tight family. I mean, ski trips to Austria while we were in Germany, Switzerland, you name it. I remember, I think we had our 8th birthday party in Spain. Just all this kind of good family life kind of kept us, straight and given us a lot of advantages and being able to concentrate on, school and stuff. We didn't have a lot of. We weren't rich by no means. Don't get me wrong. My dad was in the Army. You don't make tons of money in there, and there's 2 of us, but we had a pretty good upbringing and a very good path set for us. A lot of support, huge support network with my parents. He was sergeant major.
Yeah.
So when he found out we joined field artillery, he was like, "What the fuck? Field artillery? You're going to be in the field all the time?" We're like, "Yeah." But it guaranteed us an airborne assignment. And he's like, "I could have got you airborne school no matter what job you took." I'm like, "Oh."
It's crazy they won't, but you don't listen.
No, we don't. My son's doing the same thing right now, 24 years old, and he's an infantryman.
It was too long ago. When you went, you don't remember it. It's all changed, Dad.
Right.
It's just not the same.
The first time he listened to me is when he became an NCO, and he's like, Dad, how do you get men to do stuff that you want them to do without forcing them? And so we had to talk, lead by example. Don't make them do what you wouldn't do. Show them the right way to do it. And if you need to be fucking hard on them. This isn't the job to be soft and easy. We have a job to do. It's to defend our country, defend our nation, and make sure that, you provide soldiers with the best leadership you can. And that was really the first time, as a private, he knew everything. I couldn't tell him how to pack a ruck. I couldn't tell him how to do any of that shit. And but once he was in charge of people, he wanted to make sure he was doing it correctly. And the kid's a stud. When he did his EIB, he was a PFC, and I think over 1,000 people were taking the EIB, and 400 people got it. Him and one other private were the only privates to get it. So out of all those personnel, him and another guy got it. So
that's awesome.
So he's doing really well. He's getting ready to get stationed out at Fort Lewis.
Yeah, so, JBLM.
Yeah, JBLM. Yeah. I was hoping he'd come East Coast, somewhere near Florida, but it's not happening.
Well, he'll be here soon enough, right?
Yeah, we'll hope. We'll see what he wants to do after he goes out there. So.
No, that's good. Yeah. Since we started the podcast, I have a lot of guys that reach out. A lot of people have questions, right? Some of those questions, a little bit difficult, right? A guy asked a question the other day. He said, Ryan, I've heard people talk about you just have to learn to love yourself again, right? Like you have to learn to put yourself first. He's like, how do you do that? I don't know how to do that. And it caught me off guard a little bit. Like, okay, what exactly, how do you get back to caring? Like Christian, you mentioned when he became in charge of people, he wanted to do it right. He wanted to get that good foundation, and everything mattered at that point again. And it's like, but he needed to be able to care for other people in order to feel that. How do we get to that point without having other people depending on us, where we just build that foundation because we know that we need to have that good foundation?
Well, if you don't care about yourself, there's no way you can care about other people. Then it's just fake, and you won't be an effective leader anyway. So the way you get back to thinking you matter is you look at what you've accomplished and what you want to still accomplish. What do you have in your life now? I have 3 little girls right now. I'm 50 years old. I have a 7-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old. And I have to be there for them. I have to be there not only physically, but mentally. And, doing sometimes with what we deal with throughout deployments and, combat situations and just life in general, you can forget sometimes about what's important. And if you find that what's important, like right now, my little girls, or even my older son, or family in general, or whatever, a cause, like what you're doing, what we're sitting here trying to do. We're trying to make sure we have a voice for soldiers that need help, yeah, we concentrate on Green Berets and stuff like that, but for all soldiers that need something, find something to where you can be that light for somebody. And right now I have to be for my kids. I don't know what would happen had I not had them now, because we all see shit that's, changes our way of thinking or could jade us or whatever. But I know when I wake up in the morning and I got 3 little girls I got to get ready for school, and the only thing they really care about is, you know, cartoons and friends and that kind of stuff. I have to be there mentally and physically for them. Physically, yeah, at 50, you know, we've done a lot with our bodies, but that's probably one of the easier things to fix and to handle, you know, exercise, diet, you know, just staying in general good shape. It's the mental aspect that can be harder, especially for a lot of us that have seen shit that normal people don't get to see, you know, and finding yourself in order to be there for them, or for whatever cause. I think that's the most important thing, and I think a lot of guys are kind of losing that. I mean, I think this month is suicide prevention month, right?
It is.
And you know, SOF leads the way in suicide. 10th or Special Forces, Army Special Forces, I think, was leading statistics for a long time. I mean, how many people do you know that have, you know, lost their way and have taken out? They didn't think they had something to live for, or to continue to improve themselves for. And I just want people to know there's always something, you know, because you're not only, yeah, you're taking away your pain temporarily, but you're leaving a lot of it behind. And we need to make sure that we are finding a way for us to move ahead. And if we have our way, we need to find a way to have our brothers and sisters find their way. You know, I hear all the time, you know, I had a buddy of mine, I was living in Hawaii at the time. This was just a couple years ago. He was on East Coast time, and it was late there, so it was early evening, my time in Hawaii. And I kept seeing him post on Facebook how fucked up shit was, how you know, he didn't think shit was worth it anymore. And the funny thing is, I kept seeing people saying, hey man, if you need something, give me a call, or I'm praying for you. And I haven't talked to this cat since I left Carson in 2013, and now it's, you know, I want to say it was 2020, so it was only a couple years ago, maybe even, yeah, 2019, 2020. So I hadn't talked to this cat in years, and I kept seeing these people posting, hey man, you can do it, if you need something, call me. Fuck that. You call that motherfucker if you see it.
That's right.
I called him, you know, it's, you know, probably 3 a.m. his time on East Coast. I talked to him for 2.5, 3 hours. Like, I haven't talked to this motherfucker in years. And we talked, and I just let him tell me how fucked up shit was, how, you know, having issues with the wife, having issues with the job, not knowing what he wants to do. And I'm like, all right, man, talk. We hung up. Might not have been the exact next day, but a day or two later, he called me up and he's like, man, I think you might have stopped me from doing something permanent the other night.
You saved his life.
I'm not going to take 100% credit about that.
No.
But I at least got on the phone with that motherfucker. And we need to do that. One of my best, and this is going to fucking kill me, man, but because I feel so fucking guilty. One of my best fucking soldiers, Aaron Lindsay, and I got his bracelet right here. I haven't taken this thing off, but he killed himself. And this was a couple years ago. I was living in Hawaii again. It was probably 2000, I think it was 2020, 19. And, you know, Aaron was my 18 Bravo. He was an ass kicker. He was a warrior through and through. And I got some examples of how great of a warrior Aaron was. And he just, I talk about this a lot now, but I still get fucking emotional about this. But we were we would talk every once in a while. He had a hard time when he got out of the army. I'm not gonna go into details, but you know, he got out of the army. I was able to get him a little bit of help before he got out, and he went off and he moved out to California, and he wanted to. He was doing all kinds of things. He was trying to find his way, doing security work. He did some anti-piracy work. He did some security for rich people, all this kind of stuff. But he just wasn't finding his way. And I would hear from him sometimes, and I go for a long period of time not hearing from him. And then I'd hear from him. And he's like, "Oh, Chris, I'm doing good. I'm doing this. I'm doing this." And he was a big fighter. He was really into combatives. And he would send me videos of him working out and doing all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, all right, awesome. And I remember we were talking one time, and I still have his last text on my phone. But he's like, "Hey Chris, can I come out to Hawaii?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, but I'm getting ready to deploy, and I won't be here." I said, "Why don't you come out when I get back?" And this was in the end of August, 2020, because it was 3 years ago. And I said, "Why don't you come back when I come back from Romania? We'll hit the islands," because he used to be stationed out in Hawaii. And I'm like, "Fuck yeah, man, come on out." And we texted a couple times when I was in Romania, and then I didn't hear from him. I'm like, that's not too unusual. It's not too unusual. It happens, But then I didn't hear from him for an extended period of time. So I started asking some of the old team guys. I'm like, "Hey, man, anybody hear from Aaron?" And then one of my guys, Kevin, his wife she does Facebook and all that stuff, and she came across a little comment saying how services for Aaron will be held on this day. And upon further research, we found out that he had killed himself. And I feel like maybe I should have told him to come out to fucking Romania, or not to Romania, but to Hawaii, and he could stay in my house. He could have had a different environment to be in, all this kind of stuff. I still, to this day, feel like, what the fuck? And he had demons that he had to deal with. He, at a young age, he came in the military. We were at war, and he spent his whole entire career at war. And he was asked to do things for his country that sometimes is hard for normal people to do. And he did them well. I'm telling you, Aaron was a fucking top-notch fucking special forces operator. But he had, because growing up, he probably, I remember one time he told me the only reason he finished high school was because of his wrestling coach. He didn't have, probably, he didn't have the same upbringing that I did. I just told you guys I had a really good support network, my family, all that kind of stuff. I had that. I'm not saying his was bad. His was just different. But I remember him telling me if he wouldn't have been for his high school football wrestling coach, he would not have graduated high school. So when he killed himself, I was like, fuck, man. I didn't do enough. I didn't do enough to fucking help him. And I'll never forget that. But then I've also come to realize that, especially Special Forces guys, Green Berets, will, once they set their mind to something, they're more than likely going to carry it out. And there's kind of been a study on that. But he helped me change my mind on PTSD and all these other mental issues that, we've all seen combat. Some have seen combat some way, some have seen it another way. Some have seen more, some have seen less. Some have seen more gruesome stuff. And but we've all seen it, and we all handle it differently. So you can never say somebody's weak-minded because of, oh, they went to combat, what they do there, You just handle it differently. And some people will say, well, these people, they commit suicide, they're weak. Well, I'm gonna give you an example of how of a warrior Aaron was. He was new to our team, and I'll never forget. And he's big. I'm telling you, I think at the time I was probably 203 pounds or whatever, right? Aaron is 225, big, and motherfucker liked to fight, right? Yeah. The only way I could beat him is if I shot him first and then started kicking his ass. I mean, that's no shit, right? And we were doing cephalic, and we were doing stairwells and hallways, right? Clearing stairways and hallways.
So cephalic. Break that down real quick.
It's just our, oh man, I can't even remember what the acronym is now, but it's our CQB. Fuck, someone's gonna write on comments.
How many acronyms are you gonna throw out there?
I'm not gonna throw out any now because I don't remember what it all stands for.
So you were doing your SWAT stuff,
right? Yeah, So we're just doing hallways and stairwells, clearing them and stuff like that. And he was the number one man, so he was going first in through the door, and we were going up some stairs. And as we crested the top of the stairwell, we started taking incoming, right? And we're using those Sims round, paintball, basically. And his primary weapon jammed. Remember, Aaron was an 11 Bravo. So their immediate action drill is go to a knee, slap pull, pull sports. And that's not ours. Ours is transition to your secondary weapon and continue going to get to a stronghold, right? Well, he's number one man, I'm number two man. So he kneels down in front of me, and I kick this motherfucker. I'm like, get the fuck out of the way. And I kick him out of the way, and I have to keep going, right? And, we go through, and we continue a couple of runs. And
did you remember that you had to kick him out of the way?
Oh, yeah, no, I remember. I know it was muscle memory, dude. He was in the way. I'm going to get the fuck out of the way, and boom, and we continued on, right? I literally get the fuck out of the way, motherfucker, and continued on, right? Thought no big deal of it, right? That's just the flow, right? I got 10 other motherfuckers behind me coming up these stairwells, right? And so we do our fucking our thing, and never forget we broke for lunch, and we come down and we're sitting there and everyone's got helmets off, you're sweating your ass off, and Carson gets pretty warm. Plus up and down stairs all day, you got 50, 60 pounds worth of shit on your back, Yeah. And I look around, I'm like, where the fuck's Aaron? And I'm not telling this story to embarrass him. I'm telling him to show how much of a warrior he is. I'm looking for him, and give me a second. I come around the corner, and there's Aaron, and he's doing transition drills. So he's got his M4 up, drops it, transitions to his pistol. And it's over and over and over again. And he's crying. And I'm like, bro, talk to me. What's going on? He's like, Chris. Because I told him it's all right. He's like, it's not, Chris. I fucked up. He goes, I fucking made your son a fucking orphan. Your wife a widow, and I don't know how many other people I got hurt on my team because I fucked up. And God, I love that man. Sorry. I love that motherfucker to this day. And he wouldn't stop. I'm like, Aaron, so most other guys would have been like, oh, I fucked up. Who cares, right?
Take it on the chin.
Right. Yeah, okay, I'll remember next time. No. That motherfucker went right then and there and said, I have to fix this. It was because I just fucking got you and other people on my team killed. So, and like I said, this is not to embarrass Aaron at all. So when he started going through all his shit, you know, a man that feels that strongly about his team and how to best fix it, and he was making himself better, I couldn't help him, man. I didn't help him. Or I didn't help him to the best of my ability. And I have guilt to this fucking day, right? I have guilt to this motherfucking day that I didn't say, come to Hawaii right now. Who knows? Would it have been different? You know, Aaron one time went to a hockey game. And I don't think he's a hockey guy. He just went to a hockey game to go, and I think he was there with a girl. And there was a woman there with her 2 or 3 kids, and they were younger. And there was a group of guys that were cussing up a storm. Oh, motherfucker, you know, like this. And the woman asked them if they could refrain from being so vulgar in front of her children. Well, they started on her. Fuck you. With the hockey, we do what the fuck we want, right? We're tough, right? And Aaron was like, hey, stop. Enough. And they told him, what? Fuck you. Aaron beat the shit out of all 3 of them in the fucking, the avalanche. Okay. Whooped their asses in the thing. Because he stood up. He was a protector. And he was a true protector of people.
He was.
And a fucking true warrior. And it got him, man. What he couldn't face or couldn't handle ended up getting him. If it can do that to him, to someone that I think is one of the strongest, bravest guys, you know, that shows we do need to help people. We need to figure out how to help those kind of warriors. And I guess one good thing that came out of this is I hadn't talked to most of the guys on my team in a long time. You know, you see a couple here and there. You know, you might make a text or a FaceTime call or whatever every once in a while, but I went down the list and took every member of 0412 and I called each and every one of them just to make sure they were all right, make sure everybody was good, that everybody knew about it. And now we've started a chat group on one of these chatting apps, Signal, and you know, we tell stories and make sure, hey, and you know, some of us join more than others or participate more. I only didn't get a hold of one person. That was one of our medics, but everybody else is on that chat. We text back and forth. We ask questions. We give each other advice on, you know, possible jobs are coming up, or one of my 18 Fox, he's a big gun guy, so he's always posting stuff about guns and good deals and all this kind of stuff. And it's funny, you know, back in those days, we would talk about our kids. Mm-hmm. Well, now some of us are talking about grandkids. And except for my ass, I got a 4-year-old at 50, you know. Right. So, but Aaron did that for us.
Brought you guys back together.
Yep. And we're not best of drinking buddies. We're not talking to each other every day. But if I needed to, hey, reach out, do a comms check.
Accountability.
I can do that, right? And now it's a way for us to say, hey, you know what? I haven't heard from so-and-so in a while. Let's talk. Let's do this, right. You know? And we need, because we see shit that normal people don't see. We do shit that normal people don't do. And yet a lot of us do it, yes. And a lot of us can handle it or think they can handle it. Like, I don't sleep well. I don't know if it's from that kind of stuff or it's just I just don't sleep. But, you know, you can ask the wife. I'm 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm reading, I'll go to sleep. I'm like, oh, every time I, close the book or, turn off and I read on electronics now, like Kindles and stuff. I turn it off, my eyes are like ding, and I don't go to sleep.
That's right. Yeah. If you would go do a sleep health class,
yeah.
they would want to murder you,
right.
Because you do all the things wrong, right?
Right.
All the ambient lights and everything that you have going on. It's tricking your brain to make you think it's daytime outside.
Right. But
all those great things,
but yeah, how many guys do we know that fucking drink themselves so much, man?
Yeah.
That's our biggest thing. I got a buddy of mine who I talked to him not so long ago, and he's like, yeah, Chris, I basically became a functioning alcoholic. Yeah. I'm like, holy fuck, man. And this guy was awesome, a medic friend of mine, man. And I was like, you think he has it all put together? And, he's dealing with stuff. And we talked not too long ago, and I'm like, hey, man, because him and I were like, we were best friends. I mean, it was the two of us all the time, right? Mm-hmm. Our families were always together, and you start to drift, I went to brag, I got out, and, he ended up, kept doing his stuff, and, you drift. But I told him, I said, man, we need to do better at us. And, because we do see shit, man, I mean, minus, casualties in combat. But I remember in a town of Mboki, Central African Republic, I went into this village and I met two people that day that showed me how fucked up the world can be and that you shouldn't see this, right? We're walking around with our cultural advisor, Mark, great guy. He's British, but he's been living in Central Africa for, 30, 40 years now. I still talk every once in a while with him on Facebook just to make sure how he's doing, all this kind of stuff. But he takes us into this village, and we're talking to this village elder, and there's this young girl there who was 12 or 13, and she had been kidnapped at one point and forced to live in the jungles with this warlord out there. She was a child bride. So when I met her, she was 12 going on 13 or just turned 13, and she'd been back a year. Well, she'd been in the jungle for almost 2 years as a child bride. So from about 10 years old to about 12, she was in the jungle. And then now, she's trying to deal with all that kind of stuff. That kind of shit we see. That's not normal for a Westerner who grew up in, with a great upbringing and a support. And you're not supposed to see shit like that. That same day, going through the village, and I have a way with children. I like to play with kids, and I'm always, I'm a softie, here's some candy, here's some, whatever, And there was this other little girl, probably 10, 11, and every time I would come up to talk to her, she would turn her body away from me, her left side. She would turn away from me, and I'm like, what's going on? And I'm like, what's happened to her? She had fucking had her arm cut off by a machete off of some fucking gang of criminals to intimidate her family to give them what they wanted. She was 10, 11 years old. How the fuck am I supposed to deal with seeing that shit? How doesn't that affect you later? Or, when you see your friends getting shot, or just other people, that you've caused injury to, that weighs on people. And I didn't talk about a lot. I talk with other Green Berets about that shit all the time. That's who we need to talk with. We're our own keepers, man. You're not going to go to a psychologist or shrink or whatever and spill your guts out like that, because you don't know that guy. He's not vetted. But you, as a fucking fellow Green Beret, that should have been choked out by you on the mat, and I have been. I've been choked the fuck out by Ryan on the mat. I'll sit here and talk to you about it, right? So we're the ones that can take that responsibility and at least pull that person who needs help in and say, hey, it's okay, man. Let's go and fucking go get help, talk to me, or whatever, right? We have to be the ones to do that. And if we're not, then we're fucking failing not just our brothers, but ourselves. Because I had a very different attitude a few years ago about PTSD and mental illness, because what do we get taught? Quit, suck it up, buttercup. Take a knee, face out, drink water, here's some Motrin, right? You don't go to mental health. You don't go talk to people about fucking your problems.
No, so I was thinking about this a lot, and it kind of dawned on me, when you're going through selection, you're being assessed on your ability to handle stuff on your own, right, as an individual. And so now fast forward, you go to your team, you better be able to handle all your personal shit, all your home stuff. You don't bring that to the team, right? If you need time to handle it, then you leave the team,
right? Because
we need guys that are ready to go on the team, right? And so you have decisions to make.
Right.
And do I want to, I did all the things that I did to get to this place in life, and things that are somewhat beyond my control, because I want to stay on this team. I don't want to give that up. It's almost this feeling like if you give it up, you're never going to get it back.
Right.
And I think we make this assumption that by showing that we can't deal with that stuff on our own, it's just not allowed. You have to be able to deal with it on your own. At least that's what I believed for forever.
So, let me tell you how dumb I was as a team sergeant. And I thought I was a good team sergeant. And a lot of other people thought I was a pretty decent team sergeant too.
I would have worked for you.
I had a rule in my team room. No wives. No wives in the team room. And not because we're male chauvinists, but that's our home. And, sometimes, it's not a classified top secret space. We have those spaces. But I wanted a place where my guys would feel like, you get done with PT, you walk around, you range your panties, just got out of the shower, fuck, I remember seeing my one team sergeant's dick more than I saw my own, because that's just how it was in the team room, right? So, but I made this rule, no wives in the team room. You could drop them off and, say goodbye. If we were deploying or whatever, we would, of course you could gather around, and then, or sometimes we would teach classes, medical classes, and, sometimes we did some, weapons training or whatever, just to give them an overview, but no wives in the team room. Well, guess what one of the biggest issues are with Green Berets that commit suicide? The relationship with their wife. So here's my dumbass saying, no wives in the team room. It's the team, number 1 through 12. That's how many dudes are on the team. And that's the team. That's, you want to be part of this, right? And yeah, we had team parties, and, the team got along well with the wife and stuff. But you're putting pressure on a lot of young guys that could be maybe newly married. Their wife wants time with them. We deploy a lot. And then when we're home, we got schools, we got training, and then here's like, hey, this is our sanctuary.
Right.
We don't really foster that. Sorry, we don't foster that. That bringing them in superficially. Yeah, I mean, we had great team parties and we would have company events. We did that, but on the team where the guy wants to be, because they work their asses off together. You know, selection, the Q course, language, SEER, all these courses that we have to go get through just to get to the course. You know, I mean, when you went to selection, how many people started selection with you?
450, I think.
Yeah, I remember we had 426 because I was the acting like student leader at the very beginning so we had like 426 people.
Okay. I know it was in the fours.
Right. How many people graduated, and then how many people got selected?
I want to say we had about 110, 120 finish.
Yeah.
So this was when it was 21 days.
Yeah.
And we had about 120-ish finish. And when they came out, it was, if we call your name, go form up over there. And they probably called off about 35 names. It was getting up there, and you really didn't know which was the pass and which was the fail, because everybody standing there felt like they probably did pretty well, at least assuming I'm making that assumption, right? And I think maybe 90 to 100 got selected.
Right, yeah, that was the same with us. We probably had about, I want to say, 130, 40 people finish, and then 90 to 100 got selected, right?
Do you know how many came back and actually started the Q course out of that? That's a number I never knew.
No, but they lose very few, from what I understand, coming back, but SUT drops a lot more. So the second phase. But so these soldiers have gone through all this just to get selected, get to the team, and now, you know, they want to show usually team sergeants are older guys, been around a little bit, and that young guy wants to show that he belongs. So we put all this pressure on this kid, and I don't want to say kid as in child, but this young, I think the next oldest guy to me when I was a team sergeant was like 6 years younger than me. And then from there, I had a guy on my team who was closer to my son's age when my son was in freaking fourth grade than he was to my age. You know, he was a young 19-year-old Green Beret.
Right.
You know, and but we put pressure on these guys to be part of the team, and all we talk about is how awesome the team is. Well, he's facing pressures at home. You know, he has to be dad, husband, fix things, do things. Now put on top of it, we're deploying to Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Africa, Eastern Europe, name it. We're going to be gone for so long. Put on top of that, they're getting shot at, they're getting blown up, they're killing people, they're seeing people die, they're seeing, all these things and we've been at war since 2001 until this debacle happened to pull us out of Afghanistan. But we still have guys in Syria. We have guys all over the place. Right? So we're putting all this pressure on these guys to be part of the team. All this pressure that they face from their family. All the stuff that they see and have to do. And then when we come back, guess what? It's rinse and repeat. You know, you've done all this stuff for months and you're out there doing your job. You come home, you get a little bit of downtime, and then you're expected to be right back into, dad, husband, doing all that stuff. That pressure is high for them. And then on top of it, we don't fucking say mental health is something we need to talk about. And it's no wonder I had buddies of mine drink so much to where they could barely fucking walk at night and then get up and do it all again the next day. You know? It's no wonder guys sit there and don't know how to deal with that pressure, and then they make the ultimate, what they think is the ultimate fix, And next thing you know, we're going to another fucking funeral. On top of the funerals from guys that get killed in combat. You know? And this is why I'm saying that you and I, or every other guy that thinks they have their shit together, has to reach out to everybody, even if they think they have their shit together. You still reach out to that guy just to make sure. The name of this podcast, and I know we kind of talked about the name before you started this, and I remember you called me up, you had the idea about this, you wanted to help, and I'm like, and I'll never forget your text. I say, hey, I like the name Team Trek, and you're like, I'm not married to that, something like that. I got it still, but and then I explained to you why why the Team Trek is important, right?
Why?
Because, in selection we do an event. It's called the Team Trek at the end, where you have to rely on everybody. You can start this journey alone, but it takes a team to fucking pull it off. And it doesn't matter if we're still active duty or retired. I need people like you to make sure I'm good. Aaron needed me, and I wasn't there as much as I should have been. Right? It's a fucking team event. And that's one thing. When you look at Operational Attachment Alpha, that's a team of 12 bad motherfuckers. And they're all great individually. But if you look at them, how fucking awesome they are when they come together as a fucking ODA, nothing beats. When I was out at SUT, I used to tell all my students, nothing beats a fucking ODA as long as they're fucking together as a team. Nothing beats them. And you could always tell those ODAs that were tight and the ones that weren't quite as tight as they could be. My brother's ODA was tight as when he was team sergeant. Man, sometimes I was afraid for those guys, that's I'll let him tell you stories about that. But they were tight. My ODA now, we were, 0412, best ODA ever freaking made. I got 12 dudes that'll say yes, just like you have 12 good dudes that'll say yes, yours was too. But it is a team trek, man. It's a team event. And how many bad motherfuckers do we know? I mean, we can list them off, and but how much better are they when they're a fucking team, man?
Absolutely. We were talking about this earlier today, and I was telling you I was jealous that you had Christian growing up. You had another you right there the whole time to help you develop, and you guys pushed each other to be better all the time. And both of you, Green Berets. It's just such a small percentage of American soldiers, other services that come and transition over, go to selection, let alone get selected. Now, we're talking about two brothers, identical twins that did it. It's got to be because you guys were there for each other and you guys built each other up.
For sure, yeah. I mean, when I went to selection, man, I was like, man, I cannot fail this shit, because Christian he'd been a Green Beret longer, man. He graduated the Q course in 2021. I didn't go until 2003.
2001.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, 2001. Yeah, sorry. He went in 2000. He graduated in 2001. Okay. And I didn't go to selection until 2003. So
you had more pressure because your brother had already checked that block, and
hell yeah. Could you imagine coming home for Christmas dinner?
Oh.
Him in his uniform with his beret, and me sitting there back to I was in artillery before, great job, great people, but, I'd have been a cannon cocker and he'd have been a green, he'd be like, yo, pass potatoes, motherfucker, right? And, but yeah, so yeah, obviously pressure on it, and it helped me, It was funny. I would all going through the course, like having a twin brother. I mean, and you can attest this. If I walked out the room and he walked in wearing the same exact clothes, people like his tattoos look a little different.
I'd say 99% of people
wouldn't really
notice.
not right away. Right. And so of course, a lot of people know him because he's been doing it now for so many years before me, and so I got compared to him all the time. I had one instructor, E6, like, "Well, you fucked this up, I'm gonna tell your brother," and I'm like, "All right, cool, whatever, you know." And he's talking to me, and he's calling me, "Hey, motherfucker, if you fuck this up, I'm gonna tell Christian." I'm like, he's talking to me like he's familiar with me.
Right.
I'm like, "Bro, you don't know me." And so I asked my brother about this guy. He's like, "I don't worry about that guy. That guy's a dipshit." And I'm like, "All right." But yeah, going through the Q course with him, yeah, I remember sitting in Rob and Sage doing mission planning, and I was the team sergeant. And the door opens up, and two civilian cadre stick their head and goes, "Yep, looks just like that motherfucker," and close the door and walks away. And I'm like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because my brother's great. My brother is great. He's a fucking awesome Green Beret, but he's very rough.
He doesn't sugarcoat.
He doesn't sugarcoat shit. And so some people take that the wrong way.
Sure.
I remember I'm in the Q course, and I got the flaming piss pot patch on, right? And do you remember where... So on Yakin, there was that Chinese restaurant where the Blockbuster Video was. It was like an all-you-can-eat buffet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a laundromat there in the Blockbuster Video and Winn-Dixie and all this kind of shit, right? And we're sitting, he was there for Enoch. And him and I are having lunch. And the restaurant's not that big. And we're eating, it's just him and I. And he looks at me and he's like, "You know what I hate?" I'm like, "No, what? Tell me you hate your fucking dumplings." I don't know, right? He's like, "I hate fucking fat fucking Green Berets." Next to me there was a table of some instructors, and a couple of them happened to be a little bit probably out of shape at the moment for whatever reason, right? And I'm like, "Shut the fuck up, man." He's like, what are they gonna do to me? I'm like, "Not you, motherfucker, me. You know, I got the flaming piss pot on, and I'm still in the Q course." And he's like, "Well, fucking fat Green Berets fucking pissed me off," you know, whatever, right? And I'm like, "Calm down, dude. Calm down." That's just how he is.
That's how he is.
But you know,
well, let me ask you this about Christian, right? So you guys grew up really close.
Yep.
Could you talk to him about anything?
Could I?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, I could.
Okay.
So one day he was sergeant major, and he got when he graduated Sergeant Major Academy, he got to take the company that he started his Green Beret. He got to become the sergeant major of Alpha Company, 2nd Battalion, and that's where he started his career, his Green Beret, his Special Forces career. And he was excited as fuck. It's like, "Man, I get my little company, you know, blah blah blah." And I think that was probably planned. You know, he's got a great reputation throughout the. At least I hope he does. You know, other people might disagree, but fuck them, right? And I was living in Italy, and you know, we talk. You know, he was in Afghanistan, and he's down at, you know, whatever fob he's at, and he's every once in a while he'd call me up and tell me, and he would just, "Hey man, I'm going on a business trip," and I knew that means he would be gone for a few days, and where he couldn't have contact, you know, and. You know, so don't worry until it's prolonged if you don't hear from me, right? And I'm like, "Yep, no problem." You know, no problem. And I remember when I'm getting ready to walk out the door, and my phone rings, and I look, and it's his number. I'm like, "Oh fuck!" I knew right away what was coming on. I answer the phone, and it's him. And he is not doing well. Sergeant Major, 20 plus years, been to combat, done a lot of good shit. And he's crying. And I knew right away somebody got killed. And the night before an operation, he went to go check on his men. One of the team sergeants used to be a guy that was his senior echo, or I think, yes, one of his commo guys on his team. And so Christian went to hang out with them before dinner, and they had this one young kid freshly to the teams, and it was all, hey, Sergeant Major, we're going to go out and we're going to do good shit. We're going to go fucking get him, all this kind of stuff. And Christian's like, yep, man, we are. We're going to get him, do your job. Well, doing what you got to do before you get your game face on, right? You got to build yourself up. All guys run at a level, and our guys run at a high level, but you want to build yourself up beforehand. You're like, oof, especially the night before, you're amped up, and it's going to be a big operation. And kid went into a room, took one right to the face. And Christian took that hard because he just ate dinner with the kid the night before. He was getting ready to get on a helicopter to go somewhere, and it's like, hey, Sergeant Major, come to talk. We got a call. And so I'm talking to him, and I'm like, he's like, man, I sent that kid to his death. I'm like, no, you didn't. Hold on. You didn't. You didn't declare this operation. You didn't, you're there to train and get this kid through and provide for these people to do their job. And I was like, hey, man, you didn't send him to his death. Not at all, because he felt guilty, of course, It was the first, I think on that rotation, they lost 3 guys. 3 guys were killed, and there were quite a few wounded. Like, I think a team sergeant lost his leg or something, stepping on an IED or something. I mean, it was a pretty rough rotation. And it's like, oh, what do I do? I said, hold on. I said, first of all, get that ODA straight, give them some downtime, and then get them back on their feet. Otherwise, they're going to fall apart. Right. I'm not saying put them right back out in the shit right away, but start them slow, but make sure they know they still have a job to do. And we talked for a long time, and I also said, hey, and he had a great company commander at the time, too. I ended up meeting him a couple years later in Mongolia, of all places. Great guy. I said, hey, you as the senior NCO, as the senior advisor to your company commander, make sure he doesn't just turtle in and make sure everybody, you still have a job to do. So I was able to walk him and talk him through that. But at first I didn't talk to him about, especially with Aaron and all this kind of stuff, because I was embarrassed to tell, because to me, my brother is the greatest warrior that fucking walked. I mean, I would go anywhere with him.
I think he's your hero. One of them.
Okay, hero might not be the word, but I know that no matter what I did, that motherfucker would be right there next to me. Yeah. So I have this thing that I call this my 300 list, from Thermopylae, the Greeks that took their best 300, and I put certain people on there. And I don't have 300 people on it, but that's just my list that what I compare it to. And he's number 1 on that motherfucker, right? So I didn't always want to talk to him about stuff that bothered me or, how bad Aaron's death was for me. And because I didn't want to look weaker in front of this person that no matter what I did, he would be right there with me, right? And not that he teaches me things or not, but I'm telling you, if I went out swinging, he's swinging there right with me, man. And I didn't want to talk about it. Man, what if he thinks less of me? Until that day when he was telling me about how he felt about, then I knew I could talk to him about it. Right. And some other things, with the pullout from from Afghanistan, how fucked up it was. we talked to each other about that. But what the fuck? You know, we were able to, you know. So yes, I can talk to him about that. I feel he'd tell me either, all right, do what you need to do. Let's go the fuck on and let's move the fuck on. Or if you need to go do something and get help or whatever, he would do it for me. Yeah. And you have to have those guys, you know. I think I told you how hard Aaron's death was for me, and you know, and it's still hard, man. You know, and it's hard for guys like us to want to tell people that we are vulnerable. You know, sometimes open forums like, you know, like this are very therapeutic for people. You have to have an outlet, man, because if you bottle it up, what happens? You know, keep shaking a soda can too much, what's going to happen to it? It's going to fucking explode, right? That's right. And I'm not going to, there are times where I feel frustrated and I'm like, God, you know, you get survivor's guilt, you know, why did the guy next to you get shot and you didn't? Or how did you survive this and they didn't? And that guy was better than me, you know, and you have to let it out. You have to, because if not, you'll never deal with it. And next thing you know, you're taking it on who? I'm taking it out on a 7, 6, and 4-year-old? How fair is that? Or I'm sitting on my fucking couch, you know, I had a buddy of mine that had to buy, he would buy that cheap ass vodka that, you know, in the plastic clear bottle that just said vodka misspelled on it and what, you know, whatever, because he drank so much. Fuck, man, that's not the way to go anymore. That you know, it's not tough to sit there and bottle that shit in. And I've had it mild compared to a lot of these guys, right? Or at least I think I did, you know. And who knows? And maybe they just needed help more than others, you know.
Well, and here's the other thing. You know, we talk about not wanting to, I guess, feel less than
right
in front of the other guy's eyes. Mm-hmm. And I think for most humans, right, our biggest fear is being embarrassed, right? Saying something that somebody doesn't agree with, where now we're getting singled out and we're different, right? Because you don't want to feel different. We're a breed as humans. We want to feel like we fit in. We don't want to feel like we're outsiders. And when you start broaching these topics, it's a scary thing. I'm not going to lie. You don't want to be embarrassed. But let me ask you this. What's better, to be embarrassed and still be here, be able to work through that season of your life, right? That chapter, however long that is, but still be here. And maybe you were embarrassed a little bit, but then you saw the people that really care about you, as opposed to the people that are just there trying to get something from you. Right.
I'd rather be, you know, it's funny. My daughters, they love music and we like to dance and stuff like that. And I always tell them, you know, we'll turn up the music, I'll drop them off at school, and I'll start dancing with them. And they're like, Dad, I'm embarrassed. I'm like, and I tell them, don't be embarrassed. You're only dancing with your dad, right? Well, fuck, how can I tell them that if I'm embarrassed to come talk to you about and get my shit fixed, you know? Because if my shit's not fixed, then I'm not helping them. But here I'm telling them, don't be embarrassed.
Right. And I challenge I challenge everybody, you know, don't make us read your mind.
Right.
Don't play that halfway in, halfway out. If you're struggling, you need to tell somebody. You need to let them know, I'm at my breaking point, right? We talked about once we lose things at home, right? Once things aren't good with our spouse, that was our last mark. Once that goes awry and we are asked to leave the house, where are we going?
Right.
Who are you going to call? Are you going to call Christian? Does Christian know that you're going to call him? And if he sees your number pop up, you better answer, because this might be Christopher's last call, right? Does he know that? And I think if we don't open up and be honest with somebody in our lives, to where we have somebody on standby, we're setting them up for failure, right? You've been living for 3 years feeling somewhat responsible. If only would Aaron still be here,
Right.
and how are you supposed to know that that was the call, right? How were you supposed to know? Now, if Aaron said, Chris, no, dude, things are really bad, I need to come tonight,
Right.
you would have canceled your trip. You would have been there. There's nothing you wouldn't have done, right? You would have flown to him and picked him up and flown back. There's nothing we won't do for each other, but we have to know that this is no BS, right? Like, we're not playing right now. And I think if we can convince people to just open up with each other and say, hey, look, things are okay right now. You know where my head's at. I can go down that road. I can go down that rabbit hole and get lost. But things are okay right now because my home life is okay. My foundation is okay right now. But if I lose this, if things go bad, I have a bad day at work, I come home, mama had a bad day, and now we turn into fights, and the stuff starts coming out about why are you always so angry? Why are you always in such a bad mood? I can't deal with this anymore. Get out. And what am I going to do? If I don't have somebody to call, if I don't have somebody that'll answer the phone, right? I got a shit ton of numbers in my phone, but if there's nobody to answer the other side.
So then let me. I've been deployed the last 3 months, and there was a few times where you called and had questions about stuff, and I didn't get to you. Now, I was working a lot. No fucking excuse. I'm apologizing to you right now, Ryan, because we talked about this the other night. You probably needed to hear from me, right? Lesson learned again, I apologize to you today for that. Busy at work doesn't mean shit. Because if I missed a call, and that was the last one, I don't know if I could handle a second, And I'm not saying you're in that same situation as Aaron.
But no, you're absolutely right.
But, I'm preaching my fucking running my mouth about we need to be better. And what did I do? I let work, get into the fucking way, And I apologize to you for that. And I'm obviously cannot make promises that I'll answer every phone call. But I will do better.
Now, Christopher, if you and I had that conversation, and if I said, Chris, bro, you're my call. You need to understand, like, if I'm calling you, I got you and I got Christian, right? You're my two. I'm not asking anyone to try to take accountability of 20 people. I mean, look at the military structure, right? The reason that you're only in charge of 3 or 4 people is because you can only really know 3 or 4 people that are not your family. And so it's done like that for a reason. So I don't think that you should try to take accountability for everybody. But if somebody asks you to be that person for them, that's an opportunity. And I don't see it as anything other than an opportunity for you to be significant in somebody else's life that you weren't expecting to. And I think when we talk about that transition and we talk about why guys struggle, I really believe that they struggle to find significance in the things that they had done, and they have a very hard time trying to find something to get a hold of that they can
continue on with that feeling, right?
Yes. And that significance that comes with that, because you spent how much of your career freeing the oppressed, right? De oppresso liber. So every country you went to, you're seeing different things, different people being oppressed in a completely different way than it is here in America. And you're there making their lives better. So for more than half your life, that's what you were doing, and now take that away from you.
Right.
How do you get that back, and how do you find that significance, right? And I think the accountability that you're talking about reminds us that what you did was significant, and you can continue on, right? A lot of guys get stuck thinking that life is one chapter,
Right.
and it's seasons, it's chapters, right? Don't be afraid to turn the page, find that next thing, but that accountability, that's not the responsibility of the military anymore. That
Right.
becomes our
Our
responsibility.
responsibility.
Right? I jumped on a soapbox and went off on a rant.
No,
So
that's all right. That's
my
all right.
apologies, brother.
No, but well, that brings us to that. We go to all these other countries, right? And we're thinking we're doing all these good things, right? We're giving them a better opportunity, but in Africa, my first time in Africa, I was in Niger, 2005. We're driving this huge convoy of military vehicles, not huge. We had, I don't know, a couple of Humvees. We're loaded out with weapons and stuff like that. We had a couple of pickup trucks in from the local army, and the populace is lining the roads, and they're not seeing us as soldiers. They're seeing us as people that are handing out food, and they're standing there with these bowls in their hand, holding out like this, right? I'm not giving out food or anything, right? But we're there to train their military. Hopefully they get better and blah, 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 protect their people, stuff like that. Iraq, Afghanistan, same thing. We're protecting, we're teaching. Hopefully you can make your country better, right? Look at nowadays, we come home and how our country is looking completely different than it did 10, 20 years ago. 5, 6 years ago. Imagine how guys are feeling now. It's like, wait a minute, I went to Iraq, Afghanistan to give people the freedoms to vote, to live, to listen to music, to be more free. How are guys like us handling that today here? It's driving people crazy. And, that can be a subject for another time, but that's another pressure guys are feeling. Wait a minute, they're trying to, with restrictions and this, you're like, what is going on? All the stuff in the press, just censorship, all this kind of stuff, wow. That's another pressure guys are feeling. This is not the same, when I joined the Army in 1993. Completely different time. That's hard right now too for a lot of us.
I think Clinton was in office, right?
Yeah, Clinton. Yeah. Sergeant Major Nails used to call us the Clinton Army guy. Clinton Army babies or something. I can't remember exactly what he called us, but
I remember that guy.
Yeah, Glass Eye, SEER. He was a civilian instructor out at SEER. Glass Eye. Yeah, he was a great guy. So, but
phenomenal.
But yeah. But yeah, we're living in different times now, and we're like, some guys are confused because they're like, you're wanting to wave the red, white, and blue, but we're looking completely different, especially to the rest of the world. Imagine how it's looking from the inside. We're struggling with that, a lot of us, and and that's another reason why you have to reach out to that guy that used to be in uniform with in the team room. Well, we weren't in uniform all the time, Ranger panties and a team T-shirt was a good uniform. So
you mentioned, as a whole, a lot of struggles going on right now, just within our country, and we know that suicide isn't just prominent within the military, but it's just throughout our country. We have a lot of people that commit that act. They can't find another way out. What would you say is the biggest difference with our traumas? Because I see them very similar in a lot of ways.
Right. Not knowing what's next, not knowing how. Excuse me.
Let me ask this. When we come back and we're filling out our questionnaire based off, that's supposed to kind of represent your deployment, did you fear for your life? Did you feel like you were in grave danger? Questions like that. Well, A lot of civilians feel that way, right? A lot of
Nowadays, right?
civilians, they end up in situations where they don't know if they're going to make it out of. And those traumas, I think, are not much different than ours.
Right. I mean, people living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, you remember when you were a young soldier, as an E3 making what, 800-900 bucks a month.
Yeah, it wasn't a lot.
It wasn't a lot. I mean, luckily we have some benefits in the military, but
Sure.
a lot of people are feeling that nowadays. Am I going to make it if I don't get my next paycheck? Am I going to be out of a house?
That's right.
Am I going to be able to feed my family? And that's, especially for most men, that's a huge trauma. That's a growing up. Now we're looking a little different. I'm not even going to get into gender roles and stuff like that. But as when I was growing up, and yourself as well. How old are you now?
I'll be 46
Right,
here in December.
young pup, right? But we were taught men provide, protect, that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
Crime going through the roof nowadays. I'm always worried about if I'm not around my family, who's protecting them, right? Providing, I'm fortunate now. With my job, I'm very fortunate. We're not rich by any means, but I'm fortunate. But if that goes away, how am I providing? Paycheck to paycheck. A lot of guys live paycheck to paycheck, and that's not just the military. That's civilian as well. And back in the day, one person could work, and you could have a house and a car, and do a trip or two. To the where we're at, right?
Amusement park or
Right,
something,
right.
right?
We're in Destin, Florida. You go to the
You go to the
beaches
beach.
and stuff like that, right? That seems like it's becoming more and more of a dream than a reality. Average home prices are going through the roof.
Yeah, they were doing a comparison the other day on a
Do you mind
teacher
if I grab
salary.
a drink real fast?
No, please. They were comparing a teacher salary from, I want to say it was like on a 20-year span, right? It was like, okay, in 2000, a teacher made, and I'm just going to throw out a rough number, but it was like 63,000 on average, right? Fast forward to 2020, what do you think a teacher's salary went up, right? The 20-year gap.
Yeah.
It went up about $4,000.
Wow.
But when you look at the average home price in 2000 compared to the average home price in 2020, exponentially higher, right? How are you supposed to keep up with that?
Right.
So you're right. It just adds to the stressors, right? So now we're talking about the majority. I'm okay. And I don't want Mike to get upset at me and miss some things here, but when you think of the dirty jobs, right?
Right.
And you think of those jobs that you're out doing services for others, right? On average, police officers, firefighters, soldiers, all these first responders, protectors, border security, their average pay is considerably lower than what I would expect.
Right.
Right.
Right. Absolutely.
You're asking people to put their lives on the line, and you're gonna pay them. You're asking them to educate our children, and you're gonna pay them. You're asking them to put out our fires and save our kids from drowning, and you're gonna pay them. You're asking them to be the ones that go into that domestic violence situation where there's guns inside and somebody's on drugs or whatever that looks like, and you're asking them to go fix that,
Right.
and you're going to pay them. And then you're asking guys to play a game in front of people that somebody wins and somebody loses, but you live to play another game, and we're going to pay them. And there's such an astronomical difference between the latter and the ones that really fucking matter.
Right. And and I agree 100% with that. Like those people that do those first responder jobs, those teaching, those things, they need to be paid more. But I'm okay with the way the sports thing is because I mean they are providing some and they're bringing that money in and I got that. But we do need to pay teachers more, cops more. In EMT, I read a report, I don't know how long ago this was, but you could make more money working at certain states at McDonald's an hour than you could as an EMT who is on their feet 12, 14-hour shifts, saving lives,
Right.
doing that. And I'm like,
well, and now let's
holy
reverse
shit.
that now. That EMT that is working 14-hour shifts that just lost 3 people now comes home to their spouse that's saying, "Hey, we just got this notice in the mail.
Can't
We're
pay the
getting
car, but
evicted.
yeah.
Hey, how come the electricity's off?
Yeah.
I just spent 14 hours working, lost 2 patients, and now I'm going to come home to my house in shambles." You want to talk about pressures, right? Stresses. Matt talked about it on the last episode, right? He's like, you cannot be in a firefight on Friday in Kabul or wherever, and then come home and you're at dinner with the family at Ruby Tuesday on Sunday, thinking like everything's okay. Just like you can't go through those traumas of losing these people, these patients that you're working on, and you're so stressed out about what's going on at home. How do you expect them to be able to focus? They can't afford their to feed their family at home and to keep the lights on, and yet you want them focused and doing the best job they can, and we're gonna bitch at them when they don't, right? When they fuck it up. I think for the most part we have dehumanized each other so much, and we've thrown labels on everything to where we don't look at each other as humans anymore, as fallible, as hurting, as potentially anything other than whatever label they are.
Right. We are dividing ourselves all the time.
To be conquered.
Right. And that's what happens. That's what's happened. When you divide yourselves, you become easy to conquer 100%. 100%. And the basic is left and right, or Democrat, Republican, whatever you want to go. We're standing so hard on our grounds and these things that we, instead of finding what we have in common with each other, we want to say what we have different from each other.
Right.
And that's a huge problem. And then continue to divide in subgroups and subspecies and this. No wonder we can't get shit done as a country. And yeah, the media puts a lot of stuff out there, and so I think hopefully it's still like this and it continues to be like this, but day to day, neighbor to neighbor, we're going to be okay. But it's at a top level where we're looking down, it looks like we're so divided we can't get anything done. And it's getting to that point in reality. I mean, you got so many ways to divide ourselves that we're forgetting how to come together, and that's a huge issue with if
you brought up a really good point that I hadn't thought about. While you were talking, you said we have began trying to find each other's differences, how we're different than each other. I'd never thought about it like that. It really is. We're picking each other apart, finding how we're different, and then trying to group with the people that we're not so different from.
Right.
When in reality, we're more alike than we are different.
100%. Everybody wants better for their children. So let's start with that. Better education, better whatever, right?
Better security.
Better security. So let's find out. We might disagree on some things, but we all want what's best for our children, right? There isn't a hardly, well, there are some bad parents out there, but there's hardly any parent out there that says, no, I want my children to suffer, right? All right, so, all right, what do you want? Okay, I want this. I want this. I want a safe school. I want a safe school. I want them to have a good lunch program. Okay, a good lunch program, whatever, right? Start building. Now we can disagree on what we want to teach, you know, and then that's when the harder discussions come in. Okay, we're gonna do this, and without getting it, we're not getting into it that deep,
Right.
But you know,
let's find those things
common
that we
ground
agree on.
first,
Let's
right?
find that common ground first,
right?
And let's focus on that. Let's build a foundation again on commonalities, the things that are the most important, and the rest will work itself out in the wash. But what we got to stop doing is we got to stop pointing fingers and identifying these differences and making it a thing.
Right. And we have to quit letting other people tell us how to divide us.
Right.
Right. Do your research. You know, I'm conservative on a lot of things. You know, I love this country, red, white, and blue through and through, right? 100%. I love America.
Without a doubt.
We have some problems, yes. I wouldn't want to freaking be in any other country. Name another country you can do what you can do here. None, right? I love this country like you, and I'm willing to stand up for this country, for everyone's right to do, we have a constitution. We have it's written in there, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, all these things that we have. Let's work within those and find how we can make ourselves better, not tear each other apart, because that's what's fucking killing us right now.
No, I agree, Chris, 100%. And, on that thought of how do we get back, you mentioned neighbor to neighbor, right? That connection, neighbor to neighbor. Are we getting it back? Are we getting back out on the streets where we're barbecuing together? This 4th of July, man, like, honestly, was it like it was 5 years ago for you? Were there people gathered in the same fashion?
Not at all. On my street, I know my neighbors some, I mean, I know them all, who they are, but I don't know them. I know Dan across the street. He's awesome, Cindy 3 houses down, but we don't do anything as a neighborhood.
Okay.
I saw your neighborhood here. You got those big, like, cinema in the park or stuff like that. Do people come to those?
Not very often. On like Friday and Saturday nights, you'll see a lot of people over there. We do a lot of farmers markets, things like that. So we get good turnouts.
Right. So I was talking to one neighbor one time. I was like, you know what we should do? We should just say, one day everybody come out on their driveway, because I lived in Italy for 5 years. My wife's Italian, so I lived there for a while before, and after I retired, and she even noticed that kids don't come out to play. The garage goes up, the car goes in, garage closes,
right.
And you don't see anybody except for your occasional people walking the dog,
sure.
Or maybe somebody jogging or whatever, and I don't know how many times I'm walking my dogs and I'm like, morning, and it's nothing, right?
Well, usually they got earbuds in, they're focused, they're on their thing. Right. Yeah, we're so disconnected.
Right. And so I was talking with Cindy, and she's like, I'm like, we should just everybody go out to their driveway, and you have beer, I have wine, she has whatever, right? Or barbecue, whatever.
Bring the girls out to the front yard
and just have a block party again.
Right. Absolutely.
And just to see that we're not all different.
No, we're actually
we're
all
the same. More the same than what we are, right? And I would love to do that. I would love to see Americans be out there. I remember huge 4th of July celebrations.
You remember the movie The Sandlot?
Right, kids playing, knocking the ball over the yard, being afraid to go.
I mean, they're using the light
Right.
of the fireworks, right? The fireworks in the sky as light to be able to play baseball at night, right? That's
kids hardly play outside anymore. My girls all want, Dad, when can I have a cell phone? I'm like, never.
Yeah.
I'll tell you when you can have a cell phone. 7 years old, and she wants a cell phone. I'm like, no. You're out, but kids don't go out and play anymore.
Or not the same.
Or how many
and
times
parents are a lot more nervous about their kids going out to play too.
So guess what? Go out there with them.
Go with them. Go play with them. Make your kids your hobby, right? And again, I need to practice what I preach, but I believe to be a great parent, make your kids your hobby, right? Don't try to get your kids involved in your hobby.
Right. Dude, I started, so my 2 oldest, my 7-year-old and my 6-year-old, started taking karate, right? And my 6-year-old's getting the hang of it. My 7-year-old is pretty natural at it. She is bobbleheading motherfuckers, right? Just think, I'm like, oh. So, and I was going there, and I'm watching them, and I'm kind of critiquing from the sideline, right?
Sure.
Mara's always, stop doing that. And I'm like, well, no, I want to make sure that, she's doing it correctly and they're doing well. You know what I started doing? I got asked if I could help be like the assistant instructor.
Coach. Yeah.
I haven't taken a organized martial arts class. Hondo, thanks for all the classes. Thanks for all the ass kickings you gave me. Yeah, right? Yeah. Come on, man. How many of us?
I couldn't get away from the freaking fence with him. He just balled me up.
Yeah.
Horrible.
So I started doing that, and I am gone a lot, but when I'm home, I'm interested in what they're doing, and now I'm helping teach their classes and that kind of stuff.
Best time of your life, isn't it?
It's fun. I'm getting to the point where I'm maybe staying a little bit too much in their cry, because I also want to do like some of the older kids classes, and I helped out with some adults the other day, but yeah, I wanted with my middle one and my youngest one there. They all three like to dance, right? Man, you get this big 220-pound former Green Beret out there dancing.
6'4", yeah.
Right. We listen to every morning. We listen to "Shake It Off" by Taylor Swift.
Go on and shake it off.
Right, something like so. That one, "Roar" by Katy Perry, which I like the message to that song. Okay. Strong. Stand up for yourself. Blah blah blah. And there's one other song I can't remember. "Call Me Maybe" or something. I don't know that one that well. Okay. So we dance, we sing, and all that kind of stuff.
Can we get video of that?
Oh, I'll put it on. There is some. I'll send you.
Okay,
right?
Yeah, we'll definitely get some of that in the B-roll.
But they like that kind of stuff, and so I like doing it with them.
Of course. I
love doing it with them. We're in the pool all the time. We're throwing them around, every day, and that kind of stuff. But I also do make them listen to a couple of songs that are my choice.
Okay.
One is the Star Spangled Banner, and there's a great version of it. It's called Madison Rising. They do a great version. It's like a rock version of the national anthem. And then listen to the song by Queen, David Bowie, Under Pressure.
Under Pressure.
And read the fucking words to the song.
Okay.
Came out in the 80s. It is more applicable today than it ever has been. When we talked about pressure, there's a part in the song that brings a building down, splits a family in two, and puts people on the street, right?
Okay.
It's the pressure of day-to-day life that is just crushing people.
Right.
And it talks, through the song, and it's a great song. And then at the end, right where it starts to change to become positive, it talks about give love one more chance. To give love is the only way to change how we feel about each other, how to, bro, I'm a 50-year-old fucking former Green Beret, and I will play that song, and I will look at my girls, and I will fucking cry like a baby, dude. Because that's the only way, the only fucking way we are going to make this world better is by giving a fuck about each other.
And loving each other.
And loving each other. That is Remember I told you I started that group with my guys after Aaron died? Oh, me and one of my guys, Josh, him and I, we worked well together. He was a great commo guy. He was a great level 3. But him and I didn't always see eye to eye on a lot of things. You know, we had different upbringings. He was young, different upbringings, all that kind of stuff. And I hope he hears this. You know, and for years when I left Colorado, if I wouldn't have talked to him, who cares, right? Mm-hmm. And he probably thought the same way. I mean, sure, he came up in conversation because anytime anybody ever asked me about him, great fucking combo guy and great AS. I mean, great. Yeah. Like one of the best. All right. But him and I weren't exactly eye to eye on everything, right? So this thing happened with Aaron, and we would, you know, we text as a chat group. I called everybody individually, all this kind of stuff, right? And one day him and I were on the phone, and I don't know who called. I called, he called, it doesn't matter, right? And we talked about, we were on the phone for probably a good 30, 40 minutes. And we talked about some of our differences and how, and he told me, he said, hey, Chris, I hold all the, he's a warrant officer now.
Okay.
And he says, I hold all the team songs that I know to your standard. And he's like, you set a good standard, right?
Right.
And I was like, and at the end of the conversation, you know what he told me? He's like, Chris, I love you, man. And I said, Josh, I love you too, brother. And all that shit, all that bullshit, petty, and if it was petty, if it was true, you know, I'm sure I'm not always the easiest to get along with, and I'm sure I probably said stuff that hurt his feelings, or you know, he perceived, you know, and that was my fault. And there were things that he did that I perceived, and he, you know, except there's 3 sides to every story: my way, your way, and the truth is there. You know, because it's not that we're seeing it differently. It's just that's how we perceive things. Right. So all that shit, and I'm sure I fucked up. I know I did, because I'm not as gruff as Christian, but I can be pretty gruff sometimes too. But I felt it all just go whoop, away.
Yeah. You got to let it go, right?
Right. And I wasn't, even though I would tell everybody how great he was, me and Josh aren't.
You still held that little bit of
I was like, Josh and I won't be friends. Aaron brought that to a close.
Yeah.
And I'm forever grateful to Aaron for that. And I'm fucking forever grateful to Josh for being able to call. Even if it was me who initiated the call. And like I said, I don't remember.
Yeah.
And I felt it all go away. And you know what? My son is getting ready to be stationed where he's at. The first person I'm going to call when he gets there. Absolutely. Hey, Josh, my son's coming in. If he needs something,
be there. And
you know what he'll say? He'll be like, fuck yeah, Chris. Because he, you know, of course he remembers my son when he was little. Right. But he'll be like, fuck yeah. I can guarantee it.
So if we could just learn to basically take a lesson from that, right? And understand that we're going to have differences of opinion, but that's all they are. And you can live with a difference of opinion. Right. We can have differences of opinion, but if we'll open up and open ourselves up to that acceptance and be willing to say, you know what, let the past be where it's at. It's in the past. You can't change it.
Right.
There's nothing you can go back in and fix it. All you can do is leave it where it's at. It's not a physical thing. It's done.
Right.
It was an emotion. It was a thought. That's all it was. It wasn't a physical act necessarily. There's nothing you can do to change that.
And another thing, man, is admitting when you're wrong. Yes. I for sure, the first time Josh and I had a conversation, I was like, fuck you, I'm the team sergeant. Fuck no, motherfucker. You saw it. You took it wrong.
Right.
No, I was wrong for sure by not explaining properly or making him understand that it wasn't meant like this. It wasn't. So I was wrong.
We make it their fault because they don't understand what we're trying to tell them.
Right.
Right.
And I do that. Do I do that with the kids?
I do it with
I do it with the wife. You know, I mean, I do that. Right? I do that with other people we do that with other people in our lives that are important to us, right? Well, it's your fault that you don't understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
No, it's my fault because I'm not conveying it to where you understand. And
right. We need to slow down a little bit. That's the thing. Like, and again, this is just my opinion. I'm not a doctor. You're not a doctor.
Right.
We're not lawyers. We're not going to. But honestly, this world has done nothing but speed up since we were kids.
Yep.
It has gotten so much faster, right? You remember you had a phone. It was on the wall. It was in your house, right? If somebody called you and you didn't answer the phone, you just weren't home. Nobody lost their minds about it. It was no big deal. It was just, hey, well, he's not home right now. I'll call him later. I'll go by and leave a note. I'll leave a message on his machine. Well, things have started moving rapidly faster, as we know. I mean, the internet, as much of it's amazing. We've made tremendous advancements, but we've forgotten to be able to slow down, be in the moment, actually care enough to listen to somebody finish their thought before we're ready to answer them, right? Too often we sit on the other side of a conversation just waiting to talk back,
right,
to give our opinion on it, to give our point. We don't even let them finish, really think, listen, think, respond, something like that. Actually give it a couple of seconds. There's a whole mess. But I think if we can slow things down a little bit, go back to having some form of accountability, organization, get people together, be that olive branch. Quit being afraid of looking stupid.
Right.
Why are we? Oh, yeah. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but not only they're not only afraid to look stupid, they're afraid to lose a fight. And now things are just getting so bad that either they're not willing to stand up for themselves to fight because they're worried they're going to looked stupid or they're going to lose that fight. So they're either not going to fight it or they're going to fight it with way more than what they need, right? They're going to end somebody's life over a disagreement. Right. I just want to remind the viewers at home, if you guys like what we're doing, hit that like button, follow us, share this with somebody. I mean, we want this message to spread because we believe in what we're doing. We believe that we can actually save lives and actually prevent suicide by just being accountable, being there for our brothers and sisters, and just being good people in general. Chris, you want to close out with anything before we do?
No, man. Yes. Reach out to a motherfucker, man. That guy that was your teammate, just because you're not wearing a uniform anymore, it's the motherfucking team trek for a reason. Right. And it will not change at all. It's always a team effort. And Bill, you're wrong.
Answer your phone, right? Yeah, Chris loves it. All right, guys. We'll peace.